All right, what's going on, body odor sufferers? I've been thinking about this earlier this morning about why there's so many people who are afraid to talk about this condition that they have, whether it's bad breath, PAT, and whatever, and how a lot of them are very scared to show their faces and so on and so forth. And I've been thinking about it a lot, and the common response is because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So my thing is, I was thinking to myself, maybe this condition is somewhat of a social stigma, and that's why people are scared to talk about it or show their face, or just be open about it. And when we think about that, I think that's a negative side effect to this thing, because it's like we need more visibility, and at the same time the people who have it don't really want to be visible about it because they're embarrassed about it. So I want to read first off my phone, social stigma. I actually wanted to just read it off the top, like just remember everything I read on the internet and then just say it in front of the camera, but I don't have a great memory, so I'm just gonna read off my phone. So once my phone starts readjusting, social stigma is the disapproval of or discrimination against a person based on perceivable social characteristics that serve to distinguish them from other members of the society. So the topic pretty much is this condition the worst social stigma to ever have? And when I think about social stigmas, I think about mostly to do with like behaviors or actions that you've taken, or just diseases or illnesses in general. And this is some type of illness. Whether this is a mental illness or this is an actual illness, that should be discussed later on. That's going to be another topic in itself. But this is a social stigma. People are scared to talk about this, and maybe they're scared to talk about it because they're going to be, get disapproved, or they're going to be shunned from society, or I don't know what it is. I guess with their friends, especially their friends or family, they probably feel like they're going to be insulted or made fun of by their families or friendly or within the society. And we think about like all these other illnesses or mental illnesses or illnesses in general that are embarrassing to talk about. Like the only couple of things I could think of that was embarrassing as an illness is that most people wouldn't know about. Like they can't see it right now. It's not something that's visible that you can tell. Like for example, some people might have tumors on their body, so you can clearly see they have tumors, and it might be embarrassing, but it's something they can't really hide. But certain things that you definitely can hide is like, for example, like AIDS or herpes or something. Like, I'm sorry, those are like the two things that I just thought about when I was thinking about this topic. Like with people who have AIDS or herpes, this is something that is not going to be visible. People are not going to be able to distinguish. So they can't really shun you. They can't really make fun of you or insult you. But at the same time, most people don't want to talk about it. Like the certain stigma that you get if you have AIDS or herpes is that you were being irresponsible. You're being sexually irresponsible. And sometimes for women, it's like, oh, you were just being very sexually promiscuous and stuff like that. Even though it could be like just that one time you had sex or whatever, and then you got AIDS or you got herpes or whatever. And since people don't want to talk, they don't want this stigma that they were irresponsible or they were slutty or whatever the fuck, they will just keep it a secret. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to say they admit that they have that. And when I think about those types of cases, those types of diseases or illnesses, I try to think about it. I try to think about our own conditions, and I think to myself, is our thing comparable? Is ours like worse? Like, is ours just as embarrassing or even more embarrassing than to have herpes or AIDS? And speaking of herpes, I think like there's like a quarter of people in the United States, quarter or more, who actually have like herpes simplex 1 or 2. I know there's like herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2. I think the first herpes simplex 1 is the one with like it's mouth herpes. What's the word? Cold sores, where you get cold sores, and most people have it because people kiss on cheeks and stuff and on the lips, and that's why like a good percentage of people in America have it. But then herpes simplex 2, I might be wrong, so you know what? It's one of these herpes. But the genital herpes one, there's like over a quarter of people have it, and there's already like 330 something plus people, 330 million people in America. So if almost a quarter or more have it, then it's like, damn, that has to be in the millions or stuff like that. So, but the question is it as much of a stigma or worse? What about mental illnesses like schizophrenia and stuff like that? Is it as worse? Is our condition as worse as schizophrenia? Because if someone ever admits that they have schizophrenia, they'll naturally believe that you're just fucking crazy. You know, you have hallucinations. Or if you're bipolar, do people with our condition have the same type of embarrassment to admit that they have bipolar? And to be honest, I don't really know if people who have bipolar suffer from so many stigmas, except, they're crazy. But I think a lot of people don't even know what being bipolar means or what it entails. So I just wanted to pose that question. Is our condition the worst compared to all these illnesses and stuff? And I haven't even got into like actions and behaviors like criminality, like theft or sexual offenders. You know what I mean? Is our stigma just as worse as that? That might be another topic, and it's already overheating. Because I really want to get into it, because I wanted to talk about like just the different actions or criminality of social stigmas for criminality, and how does that compare. But I don't think it's really comparable, because with this condition, it's something that's somewhat you're like born with, whereas with criminality is like you act upon it. You made a conscious decision to do it. Like with AIDS and herpes, yeah, technically you had sex with a person who had AIDS and stuff, but you probably did it without knowing it. So I don't think actions in terms of like criminality is comparable to our conditions, even if you were not born with it. Maybe you got it from something else because there was some reason that happened, but we weren't aware that this was going to make you smell like shit or make you have bad breath or whatever happened that made you get this funk. You weren't aware that this was going to contribute to you having this chronic bad odor on top of you. Is this a terrible stigma? And is it as comparable to AIDS, herpes, or mental illnesses, like I said, schizophrenia or bipolarism, or I can't think of anything else, I'm sorry. I also want to say this camera's overheating, but I want to say this before it shuts off. I also wanted to say that I remember there being some type of short documentary about this kid from the 80s who had AIDS, who got AIDS or something like that. I think it was in middle school or something like that. His name was Ryan White. I actually looked it up. I remember seeing this on television. I rarely watch television, but I remember seeing this on television. I remember how like intense it was in the 80s. Like once they found out that this kid had AIDS, there were like parents that were literally removing their children from this school because they didn't want him to get in contact with the person who had AIDS. Or there was like parents that were sending death threats to the kids because I guess they thought to themselves that he might be a threat to my child's life. And I don't think with our condition, it's to that point where we're so funky that people are sending death threats. I'm gonna kill you if you smell like shit again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's that point. And even now, like with AIDS, it's not to that point. But at that moment, that stigma was at its worst. And I don't think ours is ever going to be as worse, where there's going to be threats to our lives or something like that. At best, there'll just be people who mock us or something behind our backs, and maybe even in front of our face. Worst case scenario, in front of our face. But mostly, I don't think it's going to be as bad of a social stigma compared to AIDS, especially when it was in the 80s, comparing it to our condition. But I just wanted to talk about that. Is our condition the worst social stigma? Could we be more visible? Here's another question. If for people who are scared to talk or show their face, do you feel that there's going to be one point where you will be brave enough to show your face, or you will not fear embarrassment or criticisms, and you'll say, yeah, I have this weird condition that makes me smell bad, and that's just what it is. Damn, it's already almost 10 minutes. I didn't want to make it long. Salute for people who watched it all the way to the end.